My name is Sara del Valle. I'm a scientist at Los Alamos National Lab, and my area of research is mathematical and computational epidemiology. And today I'm here with three moderators for arXiv, and it is my honor to get to chat with them about what it's been like to work for arXiv during the COVID crisis.
I'm Luca Peliti. I'm a retired professor of statistical mechanics at the University of Naples in Italy. And I have been a moderator of the arXiv, QBio, since the beginning in 2001. And I have been interested in the dynamics of infectious diseases, and therefore I was involved in this moderation of the COVID crisis since the beginning, also in 2020.
Hi, my name is Rimi Chowdhury. I am a postdoc in Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and I work on host pathogen interactions in the gut. I'm mostly interested in developing therapeutics and vaccine determinants for Salmonella. That's my pathogen of interest. And I joined arXiv as a COVID moderator earlier in the year in 21.
Yeah, my name is Neher. I'm a professor at the University of Basel in Switzerland. I've been working on the evolution and dynamics of pathogens, in particular RNA viruses, for the past 10 years. So we were sort of very well placed to start and do research on COVID-19 itself. And I've been a moderator of arXiv QBio, Populations and Evolution, for about 5 years now.
What is like moderating COVID papers during a pandemic?
Moderating arXiv papers for several years has been sort of a rather sort of calm affair, where you just sort of rapidly scan the abstract that looks all fine, and occasionally there's something that is worth a closer look. But with the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we saw sort of a rapid increase in papers that were either sort of very, very hastily put together and didn't have sort of the required detail and perceived robustness, or we've seen sort of people sort of putting out rather sort of bizarre pamphlets. And this required a much more intense screening, and at the same time a much higher volume of papers, which did put a lot of load on us moderators, where we sort of quite ad hoc then had to make decisions on what sort of an acceptable standard, what is sort of worth sharing, what is of plausible interest to the community, none of which had much precedent. And this certainly really sort of took off in early 2020, sort of March, April, I think, was the peak of paper load, was a task to separate the useful from the not quite as useful was the toughest.
Richard explained it very well. At the beginning, we were looking for a way to identify what was really worth posting, because the sheer amount of papers that arrived, and of course by the low-grade numbers, I would say that a great part of them was not worth posting. It was staggering. And at the very beginning, there were only the two of us. And so luckily, after a while, we had the help of Eric. And Eric did a wonderful job in making a first screen so that we could, set up for us a slower pace and be able to have more consistent decisions.
It's been a joyride. I love moderating papers for arXiv, and just the fact that I get to read them before everyone else gives me a huge kick.
Why are preprints so important for this type of global crisis? And why do you think arXiv was critical in tackling the global crisis?
Well, the point is that the arXiv allows to have immediate access to a number of data and a number of interpretation of the data that can be extremely important to decide policies and also to decide the directions of the further research. The fact of not having to wait months for a result to be published is extremely important when you have to deal with a pandemic which changes its face from day to day.
I think this sort of immediacy of availability is absolutely crucial, and also the ability to share results together with sort of the methods and sort of an appendix and all sort of the necessary details. So it's not just a presentation slide, but you can sort of put up a full-blown paper that has all the caveats, all the details, all the methods. I think is critical for this rapid but responsible sharing of results.
In my field, it really takes about a year or 1.5 years to collect all the experiments, do all the controls, make it into a story, go back and forth, and then write it up and then send it for peer review. I think preprints should be mandatory, at least in some universities, for people to publish them as quickly as possible so that the wider community can know what's the most recent information that's coming up. Saves a lot of time and resources and energy, I feel like, in research.
For my part, I don't review a paper for a journal if this isn't a preprint. So I categorically refuse to review papers that aren't preprinted, because especially in the times where we have a global crisis like this pandemic, you don't want people sitting on data until it finally comes out in flashy journal X, right? So preprinting should become should be the norm in this kind of a scenario.
Yes, I think I second what Luca and Richard said. I think preprints are absolutely necessary in a pandemic situation, and not just even in pandemics. I think in general as well, when we have interesting data, when we do interesting experiments, and we have to wait for it to develop, come out on its own into a story, and then we can publish it. So it takes a certain amount of time to go through it.
Richard, so do you think preprints are working?
I do think preprints are working, but I think it's also worth pointing out that preprints come with the responsibility of the researchers that post them, right? So that there is no very strict filtering like in peer review. There's just sort of moderation, sort of trying to catch sort of harmful things or noisy, just the things that don't add information to add noise. And this sort of freedom comes with with some obligation for the individual researchers to carefully review what they post.
I think that's what's make arXiv special for people from all walks of life to be able to understand and quickly go through what's the most cutting edge research happening right now. And that's why, especially in a pandemic scenario, when results are needed very quickly, arXiv, I think, is very important and has a huge role in moderating research right now.
It is, I think, also a bit of our collective responsibility to, maintain preprints as sort of a high quality selection of works, right? And this, we're trying to help with that, but it really sort of is a community.
Yeah, they are really working. Because I was thinking also there is another side that this allows not only immediacy, but also this spreading. So I was thinking that people, for instance, in developing countries, they essentially don't have journals. Say that they cannot afford very expensive journals, but they via preprints, so they are able to access the growing knowledge. And this is again particularly important now, because of the pandemics, so that they have sort of direct access to what is obtained in the developed countries, and they can probably cope a little bit better with what happened.
Yeah, and it's a low barrier way for them to disseminate their results,
absolutely.
right?
Okay, well, thank you all. It's been great chatting with you. Thank you. You've really played a critical role in the fight against COVID-19, and so I'm very happy to meet some of the people behind the scenes that are making the decisions and posting the papers that we submit.